A woman in a simple dress is thrown out of a luxury resort, thinking she is a nobody. The staff laugh, not suspecting who she really is. A few hours later, she returns, and the world around her freezes. This is a story about how true strength is shown without big words. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss new stories. The sea air tickled the skin, bringing with it a light scent of salt, jasmine, and something distant, reminiscent of a summer that had not been here for a long time. The Palm Vista Resort was drowning in morning light, as if the ocean itself had given it a piece of its smooth, shining surface. Black cars lined up on the smooth, tiled slope to the main entrance. White-gloved doormen opened the doors with the same rehearsed grace that they had honed over the years in front of mirrors. All around there was a leisurely, confident bustle of people who were sure of themselves and that they would always be recognized. She appeared among them almost silently, a woman in a light beige linen dress and soft leather sandals. Her hair was pulled back into an invisible hairstyle, and she wore barely any makeup. Her only jewelry was a thin chain with a pendant, almost lost in the folds of the fabric. She held a small folder and a bag with a long strap. There was no haste in her walk, only a soft, almost imperceptible dignity. "Good morning," she said, approaching the reception desk. "I'd like to check in which room the Second Light Foundation Gala is taking place. I want to check on the preparations." The guy behind the counter barely glanced at her. His eyes slid over her clothes, and his lips curled politely. "Good morning. Sorry, but the evening is closed. Access is allowed only to registered guests and staff with bracelets. Are you with someone?" "I'm on my own. I just need to check the seating and decoration. I'm connected with the foundation." "Do you have a document? Confirmation?" "No, but I have a name. Grace." The boy smiled again. Not brazenly, but with that strained warmth that hid the cold. "Sorry, but I can't let you in without official clearance. Those are the rules. Try asking the manager." "Where can I find him?" "Let me confirm." He pressed the headset. "Mr. Hensley, we have a guest here without confirmation. Says she's connected to the foundation. Name is Grace." "Yes, at the entrance." "Good." He passed out. "He'll be out now." She nodded and took a step back. Someone passed on the right, casting a glance at her that ranged from curiosity to contempt. The woman with tanned arms and a silk dress adjusted her bag, as if she was afraid that someone else's presence might ruin the shot. A minute later, a man emerged from the glass door, tall, trim, wearing an impeccably tailored gray suit and thin-framed glasses. He walked with the same gait as anyone who has seen themselves in the mirror too often. "Good morning," he said, smiling reservedly. "My name is Trevor Hensley, manager. Is there anything you wanted to clarify?" "Yes, my name is Grace. I'd like to make sure the seating and decor are in line with the foundation's plan. Tonight is important. He interrupted her gently but sharply. "Excuse me, miss. I understand your concern, but we have certain protocols in place. Without accreditation, we cannot allow anyone into the hall, even if you are, say, a volunteer or an invited guest. I'm not a guest, and I'm not a volunteer. Look." He lowered his voice a little, making it the tone of a teacher. "I'm sure you came with the best of intentions. But now everything has been verified. The last briefing has taken place. All that remains is close preparations. And, with respect, your appearance does not quite match the profile of the organizers." She remained silent. He paused and looked at her more closely. "We have many high-ranking officials here. We cannot risk even the slightest discrepancy, so I ask you to leave the area, without a scandal, without misunderstandings." She looked at him for a long time, without malice, without mockery. The way one looks at a person who has not yet realized that he has just put a period where there should have been a comma. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Have a good day, Mr. Hensley." He nodded, satisfied with her obedience, and turned away. And she walked out with the same gait, not a step faster. Past the terrace, where the tables were already being set. past the waiters rehearsing the movement of trays, past the woman in the silk dress, who now looked at her with a grin. She walked down the stairs and along the beach. The sand crunched under her feet. The wind ruffled the hem of her dress. She took her phone out of her bag, opened a new message, and typed, "Cinderella, Palm Vista. 2 hours." She pressed send and put the phone away. Far out in the bay, a white yacht bobbed on the horizon. The sun reflected on its side. Inside, there was anticipation. On board, there was silence before the approach. And on the beach, there was a woman who had just been chased away from her own party. And she just looked at the sea, like someone who knows. Sometimes you come early not to be met, and to see who is greeting. Inside the ballroom pavilion, behind closed glass doors, everything was shining. Crystal chandeliers were reflected in polished tabletops. Tablecloths lay straight as if on a ruler. Glasses stood in pairs, waiting for the evening ringing. The staff bustled about almost silently. Waiters straightened napkins. Lighting technicians measured out the point of light. Florists placed the last buds in tall vases. The resort was preparing for a high society evening with the same precision with which a surgeon prepares an operating room. The manager, Trevor Hensley, walked past the mirrored column, looking into his reflection. Everything was perfect. Everything was under control. His control. "How's the pool area?" he asked his assistant. "The banner has already been put up. All that remains is the flower arrangements. The courier is on his way." "Great. Time?" 1:45. "Perfect." Trevor nodded, keeping the rhythm. He entered the back room, where the staff was temporarily having a snack at the counter. The young bartender, who was scrolling through his phone during the break, suddenly grinned. "Did you see how you kicked out that strange lady this morning?" "Which one?" One of the waiters became wary. "The one in the beige dress, with a bag over her shoulder. She tried to walk in without an invitation." "Ah, that one." Trevor listened. "So what?" "It's just, someone from security managed to snap a photo of it on his phone. Take a look." He turned the screen over. There was a photo, a woman standing in front of a reception area, her arms folded across her chest, her face calm, her gaze far away. Under the photo was a caption in the chat: "Cinderella without a dress." Someone laughed. Someone clicked their tongue. "I would have kicked you out too," snorted the girl in the white apron. "You looked like you just walked in from the beach." What kind of self-confidence is this? To come without makeup, without security, and say that they want to check out the hall? The bartender shook his head. "They think that if they say the word fund, they can do anything." Trevor chuckled. "The ability to distinguish guests from imposters is an important skill, and I can do it." Everyone nodded. No one argued. Meanwhile, on the south wall, on a terrace overlooking the ocean, a young girl named Harper stood watching the water shimmer. Her father was a construction magnate, her mother a designer. She grew up in the evenings where everyone smiled but no one made eye contact. It wasn't the flowers or the music that caught her attention, but the woman who had been chased away that morning. Harper sat by the glass and heard the doorman's conversation. "She says she's connected to the foundation, but she has no badge, no car, not even a hint of security." "And did you see her look?" answered the other. "As if she is not asking, but giving a chance. Only we did not take it." Harper hadn't dared intervene then. But now, standing at the edge of the room, she felt uneasy, as if the story weren't over, and she was not mistaken. A snow-white yacht slowly approached on the horizon behind the glass. It was as huge as a hotel and as graceful as a swan. Its sides glittered in the sun, and the deck was lined with personnel in black suits. Cars were already parked at the exit. People were whispering hurriedly on their walkie-talkies. "Who is this?" asked one of the employees. "It's the Odyssey, William Whitmore's yacht." The doorman's eye flickered. But he wasn't on the guest list. Inside the room, Trevor Hensley felt his phone vibrate. A message from a senior manager. Chief, Whitmore has arrived, in person. His wife is with him. They are heading toward the room. He turned pale. His wife, he whispered. But Whitmore's wife is... He didn't finish. The doors of the pavilion slowly swung open, and she entered the opening, the same woman in the beige dress, only now, in an evening one. Mother of pearl silver, softly falling over her shoulders, decorated with the finest embroidery. Her hair is up, her earrings sparkle, her gait is even, unhurried. Next to her, William Whitmore. In a black tuxedo with a serious expression on his face. Trevor couldn't believe his eyes. He stepped forward, lost his step, and held out his hand in confusion. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm sorry. I didn't know. She looked at him calmly. You knew. You made a choice. It just turned out to be the wrong one. He was speechless. She passed by, calmly, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't stood in the morning sun by the closed doors, as if no one had made fun of her. No one had clicked on the phone, no one had whispered, but her step was not vengeful, but weighty. Harper looked at her, holding her breath. Grace came over and stopped. Have we met? She asked softly. No, I mean, not exactly. I saw and heard. Then, Grace smiled. Next time, don't be silent. Sometimes one word is enough to change something. Even a look can be a voice. Harper nodded, something new shining in her eyes. Grace moved on. The evening was just beginning. But its main stage had already taken place, and on it was not a dazzling dress, but a woman who entered not as a queen, but as a reminder. Real class needs no announcement. It simply enters, and everything changes. The ballroom, which had recently been alive with the bustle of preparation, was now a mirror of evening light. The chandeliers were softly reflected in the glasses, and the piano on the stage made light, almost imperceptible sounds, as if it were trying out its own keys before the performance. Everything seemed perfect. And in this perfection there was no soul until the moment when the doors opened. When Grace walked in, no one recognized her at first. Several guests standing closer to the entrance turned, but their gazes slid past her, like people slid through display cases, not recognizing a diamond if it lies without a nameplate. She walked slowly, without attracting attention, but there was something so calm and confident in her step that the room seemed to sense that someone special had just entered. Beside her, William moved slightly behind her, like a shadow. He was not the one who was needed to impress. He was the one who silently strengthened it. Grace stopped at the first table. The girl with the glass of wine, with the same perfect hairdo that had laughed at Cinderella that afternoon, looked up, and for a moment forgot how to hold the glass. Her hand shook. I'm sorry, she whispered. Grace just looked, nodded, and moved on. She spotted Harper standing alone against the far wall, looking at the guests with a slight frown on her brow. When she saw Grace, she seemed to freeze. You came, Harper whispered as she came closer. I didn't leave. I just gave them a chance to prove themselves. Why didn't you say who you are? Because if I said it, it would change their behavior, and I wanted to know their nature. Sometimes silence gives us more than speech. But they made a choice, and now they will see the consequences, not as a punishment, but as a mirror. Harper nodded. Then she added, a little more quietly, I regret not intervening. Grace looked at her carefully. Remember this feeling. Next time it will become a voice, and when you use it, someone will feel better. At that moment the music started playing. The guests began to gather at the stage. Trevor stood to the side, slightly in the shadows, with a glass of champagne in his hand, but he did not drink. His eyes darted around. When he saw Grace at the stage, his face turned pale. "Oh my God," he breathed. "She—" The secretary standing nearby whispered, "That's her. Whitmore's wife. Founder of Second Light." Trevor took a step forward, as if he wanted to speak, to justify himself, to explain. But Grace was already climbing onto the small stage. Silence fell in the hall. Even the piano fell silent. She stood in the light. Not the glare, not the flash. In the light of someone who doesn't ask for attention, but receives it. "Good evening," she began. "Thank you to everyone who came. This is a special evening. For me, for the foundation, for those for whom we have gathered." Pause. Everyone listened. "This afternoon I came to this resort, in a simple dress, without makeup, without assistance. I just wanted to see how the preparations were going. But they didn't recognize me. They stopped me. They took me out. They told me that I'm not suitable." A whisper passed through the hall like a light wind. "I am not angry. I am not even offended. I am grateful. Because today, I had the opportunity to feel what many women our foundation supports feel. They are not noticed. They are not listened to. They are judged by their clothes, their hair, their shoes, but not by their hearts." She took a step forward. "Today I came back. In a dress. With a husband. With a name that perhaps commands respect. But do you know who I really felt like? The woman who was not allowed in this morning. And it is she who I want to protect." Trevor no longer moved. He stood with his eyes downcast, as if his shadow had become heavier than his body. Charity is not about donations. It's about a look. About the moment when you see a person, not a status. When you don't ask, "Who are you?" but ask, "Are you okay?" She looked down at the front row where the girls from the shelter who had been invited to the evening sat. "Today we are raising funds for a support program, but I am asking you not only to give money, I am asking you to give attention, respect, and strength. Because sometimes all a woman needs to survive is just a little bit. For someone to say, 'I see you, and you are important.'" The hall froze. And then, the first claps. Quiet. Then, louder. And suddenly, the whole hall stood up. People applauded standing. Grace walked away from the microphone. William met her at the steps. She took his hand. And when they passed Trevor, she stopped. He lowered his head. "Mrs. Whitmore, don't make excuses," she said quietly. "Just remember, next time is a chance to do it differently. I believe you can handle it." She moved on, and he remained standing. For the first time, not as a manager, but as a person who had been given the opportunity to see and to choose, and perhaps to change. After the speech, the hall did not fall silent for a long time. People applauded standing up, and each clap sounded not like politeness, but like recognition. At some point, even the music that someone started automatically was lost in the general silence because attention was not on the sound, but on the woman standing under the lights. She came down from the stage without haste. William walked next to her without saying a word. He knew, now is her time, and all he can do is be there, like a shadow, like a support, like a silent shield. Grace walked between the tables, and people stood up, extended their hands, nodded. Someone said, "Sorry, we didn't know." She thanked everyone, not in a high, not condescending way, just like a human being. Some turned away, unable to hold her gaze. Some, on the contrary, looked into her eyes, as if realizing for the first time that the present had always looked different. Trevor stood by the back pillar, behind the half-lowered curtain. He didn't run away, as he might have. He didn't hide. He didn't leave. He looked, for the first time, not at the form, not at the fabric, not at the color, but at the person. And something cracked inside him, not loudly, but noticeably. He saw how the guests he had smiled at all day were now reaching out to the one he had thrown out. He saw how the woman he had called inappropriate was now gathering a silence of respect behind her. And he understood. He had not been mistaken about the guest. He had been mistaken about the essence. "Excuse me," a voice said next to him. He turned around. It was Harper. "Can I speak to you?" "Of course." Trevor ducked slightly. "What happened?" I just wanted to say," the girl hesitated, "that what happened this afternoon was wrong. I knew it then, and I kept quiet, and I'm sorry." He nodded. "I'm sorry too. I thought I was defending order. But in reality, I was defending bias." "She's great," Harper whispered. "But even if she weren't, she still wouldn't deserve this." "Yes." Trevor straightened up. "No one deserves it." Grace came closer. She heard, or felt, or was just there at the right time. Trevor looked up. Their eyes met. "Mrs. Whitmore." His voice was controlled, but trembled slightly. "I can't tell you how sorry I am. It was unforgivable." "No," she said softly. "It was human. Mistakes happen, but the choice of what to do with them is human. What will you do with yours?" He was silent for a second. "I will try to make sure that those who come without a label feel no less important here. Then I have a favor to ask of you." Grace folded her hands in front of her. "We have a program at the foundation. We are looking for a coordinator who knows how to bring order, but not externally, but internally. Someone who knows how to manage not only the halls, but also attention. Someone who knows what it's like to make mistakes and to understand." He narrowed his eyes. "Are you offering me to work for you? I offer you a second option, not as a punishment, but as a way." Trevor took a breath. Then he nodded. "I'm not sure I'm worthy." "No one is worthy the first time. What matters is what we do with the second." She left, leaving him standing by the column. He watched her for a long time, and he felt not guilt, but opportunity. Later that evening, on the terrace, Harper approached Grace with a glass of juice and said briefly, "Thank you." "For what?" "For not humiliating those who did this to you." "Humiliation is weakness. I'm not weak. I just remember what it's like to be unrecognized, and I don't want anyone to feel that because of me." Harper looked at her like someone she wanted to remember, not as an image, but as a voice. "I think you didn't just change the evening, you changed the people." Grace chuckled. "People change not because of speeches, but because of the silence after them. The main thing is not to leave when you are not recognized. The main thing is to stay and give them a chance to understand everything." A light breeze blew in from the sea. The waves whispered softly below, where the torchlight played on the foam. The music was playing again in the hall. Everything continued. But differently, because now this was not just a charity event. This was history, and it was heard. The next morning greeted the resort with a soft gold. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, leaving streaks of light on the water that seemed like a road, quiet, clear, serene. Palm trees swayed in the morning breeze, and snow-white lounge chairs still retained the cool of the night. Palm Vista looked different that morning, not because anything had physically changed, but because the silence itself seemed full. It was as if memory breathed here. Grace was sitting on the terrace by the main building, holding a cup of tea. She was wearing a light cream-colored suit, her hair falling freely on her shoulders. Her face was calm, as if everything in her had already settled. William stood a little further away, talking to the administrator, nodding briefly. He never intervened when Grace spoke, but he was always there when she was silent. A few minutes later, Trevor came over. He wasn't wearing a suit, just a simple light shirt and dark trousers. He looked younger, simpler, like a man who had taken off his mask for the first time in a long time. "Thank you for inviting me," he said, stopping next to me. "Thank you for coming," Grace replied softly. "Have a seat." He sat down, carefully, as if he didn't fully believe that he had the right to do so. I thought a lot after the evening, not so much about myself, but about how many people I may have pushed away, simply because I didn't recognize what was important in them. "It's not uncommon," Grace said. "We're all quick to judge. It's not a question of not making a mistake. It's what to do next. I would like to try, to do something differently." "I know. That's why you're here." She took a thin brochure out of the folder and handed it to him. "Here is the program description: internship coordinator. Work with young people from difficult areas who have no behavior models. You will become such a model, if, of course, you accept it." He opened the brochure and flipped through a few pages. "And this? Who is it named after?" Grace smiled slightly. "Your last name. We've created a scholarship to study hospitality, for those who don't have connections but have passion. It's called the Hensley Scholarship. Let your name have more than just yesterday." He fell silent. His eyes watered, but he blinked to hide it. I don't even know what to say. Sometimes words get in the way. Just start. They sat in silence for a few more minutes. Then he stood up. "I'll start by not looking at shoes before I extend my hand. Thank you." He left. Grace stayed. A light breeze touched her cheeks. The tea in her cup had cooled a little. She looked into the distance at the yacht, slowly moving out to sea. Its sides sparkled in the sun, as if the reflection of the previous evening still lingered on the water. Harper came up from behind. "Can?" "Certainly." The girl sat down next to him, crossing one leg over the other. She looked different, simpler too. She no longer had that stiff posture she maintained among the adults. "I signed up as a volunteer for the foundation," she said. "The first meeting will be tomorrow." "And what prompted it?" "Your voice, or rather your silence. When you looked at him, at Trevor, without malice. I realized that strength is not in winning. It's in not falling." Grace nodded. "It doesn't come right away. But you understood quickly. I'm proud." Harper paused for a moment, then added, "If I ever become like you—" "Don't be like me," Grace interrupted. "Be like you, only fuller, deeper. I'm just one of them. You are too." The sun was rising higher. The resort was coming alive. Some were already having breakfast by the pool, some were taking out the children's rings, some were taking pictures of the ocean. And here, in the shade on the terrace, two women were talking about something that didn't need cameras. When Grace returned to the room, there was an envelope on the pillow. The handwriting was male, recognizable. She opened it. "You could have done it loud. You did it beautifully. I fell in love with you again. Like the first time. William." She smiled, pressed the letter to her chest, and looked in the mirror. There was no heroine of the evening there, no symbol of the foundation, no owner of the yacht, but just a woman who stayed, didn't leave when she was driven away. Didn't raise her voice, but passed like light, where it was not expected, and left it behind. Because when you come without protection, without a name, without noise, and still remain yourself, you have already won, without a stage, without a title, just stepping forward again, silently.